Hello, cogitantes. What happens when loyalty transforms into chains? When the power that once protected becomes a prison? And when the love for family clashes with the primal instinct to survive? Today, we unravel the tragic path of Tiger Vanguard, a creature torn by pride, loyalty, and betrayal, a reflection of the inner battles we all face. But before we dive in, let me ask you, what would you do if your loyalty to someone powerful could save your family, yet the cost was betraying everything you once stood for? Would you choose safety or honor? This is the impossible choice Tiger Vanguard was forced to confront. And today, we walk that path with him. First, let's ask, why is Tiger Vanguard, of all creatures, a tiger? In Chinese cosmology, it's a sacred symbol. In Taoist thought, the tiger embodies the power of yang energy, fierce and dynamic. In Buddhist iconography, it takes on another dimension, representing the wild, uncontrolled desires that can consume us if left unchecked. The tiger is a staple in Chinese allegory, appearing in countless tales that speak to human nature. One of the most famous is the story Wukong Slays the Tiger, from the 14th century classic Water Margin by Qi Naiyan, one of the four great classical novels of Chinese literature. In the story, Wukong, a man of immense courage, kills a tiger with his bare hands. It symbolizes the triumph of human will over the chaotic forces of nature. But what happens when a tiger's power and ferocity are bound by loyalty? In Chapter 2 of Black Myth Wukong, tigers abound, but three of them are central to our exploration of loyalty and servitude: an old one, a bloodthirsty one, and a mad one. The first is Old Tiger, from the book Journey to the West, once the first Tiger Vanguard. His was a position of honor, the right hand of the yellow-winged sage. Old Tiger patrolled the dangerous yellow-winged ridge, leading the hunt for animals and, at times, unfortunate travelers. Despite the yellow-winged sage's warning about Wukong's power, Old Tiger challenged Wukong. Wukong defeated him, and in a desperate bid to escape, Old Tiger ran straight into Bajie, who would land the final blow. His death left his two sons lost, their futures uncertain, in a world that shows no mercy to the weak. Now let's step into the world of Black Myth Wukong. Picture a landscape of desolation. Two orphaned tiger brothers, abandoned to the wild after their father fell at the hands of Sun Wukong's party. Survival, even for a tiger, isn't a given in this unforgiving universe. But what is a tiger in a world like this? And what does it mean to be born into power, only to see that power stripped away? The brothers fight their way through those brutal years, clawing their way up from the ruins of their father's death. Together, they rise to govern the Yaoguais, the lesser creatures that roam the mountain. The elder brother steps into the role of leader and becomes the new Tiger Vanguard. He learns to wield power just as his father did. The villagers see him as a figure of protection, and in his honor, they build the Crouching Tiger Temple. The younger brother, quietly, bitterly, harbors resentment. His jealousy is a slow burn, simmering under the surface, hidden for now behind the shared fight for survival. Now let me ask you, what happens when the people we love feel betrayed by us, even when we believe we have done everything in our power to protect them. How does family, once a refuge, become a battlefield? Enter again the yellow winged sage, a figure of immense power, the one the younger brother holds responsible for their father's death. Driven by grief and anger, the younger brother urges the elder to take revenge, to rise against the yellow winged sage and restore their father's honor. And the elder, bound by family loyalty and a sense of duty, agrees. Together, they march to confront the yellow winged sage to reclaim their family's legacy. But the battle is over almost as soon as it begins. The yellow winged sage reveals a weapon unlike any other, a bodhisattva's severed head, capable of unleashing winds as sharp as swords. In the blink of an eye, the younger brother is gravely wounded, and in that moment, the elder tiger sees the true cost of this fight. Faced with the brutal reality of his brother's imminent death, he makes a choice that will define him forever. He lays down his arms, kneels before the yellow winged sage, and surrenders. In retrospective, the ruin of the tigers didn't begin with the surrender. It began when they challenged the yellow winged sage and lost. By attempting to defy a force far beyond their power, they disrupted the cosmic balance, like Sun Wukong with the Celestial Army. This is similar to the cutscene story at the end of the chapter, where a traveling scholar saves an injured fox only to dream that the fox transforms into a woman, marries him, and eventually devours his family. Though it was just a nightmare, the scholar kills the fox out of fear. In both stories, attempts to alter fate, whether seeking revenge or saving a creature, lead to ruin. Crossing the lines set by nature only invites destruction. From this moment of defeat, the Tiger Vanguard, as we see him in the game, is born. When the younger brother awakens, he is horrified. The brother he had trusted, the one who was meant to fight for the family honor, now serves the very creature who brought their father to ruin. The younger brother, consumed by bitterness, abandons his sibling, breaking all ties and becoming the infamous Mad Tiger. He forges a sinister alliance with a retired warrior and his son, whose life was ravaged by the Samadhi winds. In exchange for treating the son's illness, Mad Tiger asks the warrior to lure fellow villagers into the well, where they would meet their end as prey. From the Yaguai's perspective, this isn't an evil act. After all, human beings are seen as no different from the prey of a tiger. In their world, it's survival of the fittest. But soon, the villagers catch wind of the scheme and they kill the warrior's son in retribution. The warrior slaughters the entire village before vanishing, ultimately transforming into the demon known in the game as Tiger's Acolyte. It's interesting to note that in Chinese superstition, those killed by tigers often return as Changgui, vengeful spirits bound to lure other humans to their doom. In Black Myth Wukong, this myth takes a darker twist. The warrior becomes the demon without dying, a living embodiment of the curse. And now, Tiger Vanguard stands utterly alone, trapped in the role that once defined his family's honor. A title that had symbolized strength and prestige has now become nothing more than a chain. In his heart, hatred for the yellow-winged sage burns like an unquenchable fire, but he knows the sage's power is far beyond anything he can challenge. His only option is to endure, feeding on his rage and taking it out on the rat guys that serve under the Sage. But this raises a question. Is this true survival or just the slow death of the spirit? How long can someone remain loyal to a master they despise, knowing that their only chance of staying alive lies in submission? Tiger Vanguard, powerful, feared by the lesser creatures that bow before him, finds himself just as much a servant as those beneath him. He may wear the title of Vanguard, may command respect and strike fear into the hearts of many, but in the end, like his younger brother, the Mad Tiger, he is trapped in a web of pride and power, unable to break free. Now imagine as you ascend the stairs of the Crouching Tiger Temple, the scene before you, the pool of blood glistens in the sunlight. And there, waiting, is Tiger Vanguard. His striped coat glows in the sun, majestic yet filled with the weight of his burdens. His eyes burn with anger, an anger that has festered over centuries. And his bronze head and iron tail are poised, ready to strike. In those eyes, you can see it, the yellow furred rat who twice shattered his family, leaving them broken and scattered. He loathes the yellow-winged sage for it, despises him with every fiber of his being, but Tiger Vanguard is no fool. He knows that as long as the rat has protection from the higher ones, there is little a tiger can do but vent his fury on the lesser rats that cross his path each day. And so he fights, not out of ambition, not out of honor, but because fighting is all he has left. But now you know his story. You know that behind the fierce exterior is a creature who has lost everything: his father, his brother, his sense of self. And as you stand before him, as you confront him in battle, ask yourself, is this tiger truly your enemy? Or is he just another victim, trapped in a system that has devoured him, caught in a cycle of power, servitude, and loss? In the end, when Tiger Vanguard falls, what remains? His body lies motionless in the blood pool before becoming dust. But his legacy, what he once stood for, has long since been lost. As we reflect on Tiger Vanguard's tragic tale, we are confronted with a profound lesson, a lesson that Hegel's dialectic of master and servant illuminates for us. In the phenomenology of the spirit, Hegel shows us that the relationship between master and servant is not merely about dominance and submission. It's a cycle of dependence, a struggle for recognition, where the master's power is only sustained through the servant's labor and acknowledgement. He writes, "The truth of the independent consciousness is accordingly the servile consciousness of the bondsman. The servant, in fulfilling his role, starts to recognize his own contribution to the master's power, and through this realization becomes aware of his own potential for self-consciousness and even liberation. But what happens when that cycle never breaks? What happens when the servant, like Tiger Vanguard, remains locked in his role, believing that his servitude is his identity, that his loyalty, no matter how misplaced, defines his worth? Through this lens, we begin to see Tiger Vanguard's story not just as a personal tragedy, but as a reflection of larger power dynamics. Think back of 1989, Francis Fukuyama's so-called end of history, when we were told that the conflicts between masters and servants, between lords and serfs, had been resolved. that the world had entered an era of peace, progress, and prosperity. But what we see in Tiger Vanguard's story, and indeed in the world around us today, is that this conflict never truly disappeared. It was simply reconfigured. The chains may look different, but they remain, now unchecked and unquestioned. And so, how often do we, in our own lives, remain loyal to systems, beliefs, or structures that no longer serve us? Tiger Vanguard consumes the lesser creatures, feasts on their sacrifices, but in doing so, what has he become? A predator in appearance, but in essence, he is trapped within a hierarchy that binds him, dependent on the very structures that offers him only the illusion of power. And in this, we see a reflection of the servant today, the individual who might seem autonomous, who may even rise through the ranks, yet whose freedom is ultimately constrained by the system itself, where the chains no longer clink with iron, but are forged in economic dependence, labor division, and the endless cycles of production and consumption. As Marx in The Capital told, exploitation in the capitalist system doesn't require visible chains or legal force. It's embedded in the very fabric of economic functions, hidden within the power imbalances that dictate who serves and who benefits. Tiger Vanguard is the perfect embodiment of this dynamic. His title, Vanguard, may be grand, his position seemingly elevated, but he is just as much a servant as the lesser rats he devours for sustenance. The awareness of his own domination fades, and in that fading, so does any hope of liberation. And this, I believe, is the ultimate lesson of Tiger Vanguard's fall, the recognition that power without self-awareness is not power at all, it is servitude. The more deeply ingrained the system of dependence becomes, the more distant the consciousness of it. The system strengthens, but the awareness of subordination fades into the background. Tiger Vanguard is a mighty lieutenant, yes, but a prisoner nonetheless. Hegel teaches us that the master needs the servant as much as the servant needs the master, but the liberation never comes to those who blindly accept their servitude. It comes only when the servant wakes up, sees the chains for what they are, and seeks to transcend them. Otherwise, there's only a slow, suffocating existence, where the potential is buried under layers of duty and obligation, and by the time the chains are seen, it may be too late to break them. So now I turn it over to you. What do you make of this analysis? How does the tiger's story resonate with you? What reflections does it spark in your own mind? I'd love to hear your thoughts, so drop a comment below and let's talk about it. Thank you for joining me today. If you found value in this exploration, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to join our ever-growing community of Cogitantes, a group dedicated to thinking critically, challenging the norm, and pushing against the grain. Happy mindful gaming. Until next time.